Now notice first here, in terms of the structure, we've got seal, fears, feel, years. A, B, rhyme scheme. And that's the same in the second stanza as well. Force, seas, course, trees. So he's got basically an A, B, rhyme scheme. He's got two stanzas with 4 lines each called quatrains. 4, quattro, quatrains. In terms of the subject matter, we have again here the speaker lamenting the loss or the death of the beloved. The Lucy character has died and he feels the pang of her loss. But what does he mean by a slumber did my spirit seal? What does he mean when he talks about slumber? Is his spirit sealed up by the grave? Or is his spirit sealed up perhaps because he is oblivious to certain things? When coupled with the next line, I had no human fears, it sounds like a good thing to have no human fears. But that might also be taken to mean that he didn't have fears like most humans do. In other words, he didn't fear that he would lose what he already loved. He didn't think it would ever go away, perhaps we could read it that way. In that case, then, a slumber did my spirit seal might take on a different meaning. If he's taking for granted the beloved, if that's what the first 2 lines mean, then he is in sort of a spiritual slumber. He's sleeping to what the reality of his condition is. And what would wake him up from that complacent sleep? What sort of thing might shake him out of his sleep to actually value what he should value? Well, as we learn in the 3rd and 4th line, she, Lucy, seemed like she could never feel any earthly years, like time didn't affect her. And consequently, I suppose we could say, he took her for granted. And when he took her for granted, that was like being asleep. So the first stanza now sets the stage. Here's how I was. I loved this woman. She didn't seem like she'd ever age. And I took it for granted. Almost like living in a dream, we say. Almost like living in a slumber. I took it for granted that she would always be there. The second stanza stands against this, though, because immediately he says, no motion has she now. And if she has no motion, what does that indicate? She has no force. What does that indicate? It indicates that she is now deceased. She's dead. When she has no motion, she's already demised. And she neither hears nor sees. So the person that he loves in the first stanza is dead in the second stanza. And there's a jarring almost stop to the poem, right, between the first and second stanza. No motion has she now, no force. He almost stops the whole conversation, like he's being shaken out of his sleep from the first stanza, notice. And yet her motion has become part of the diurnal motion from day to night, the rotation of the world. She has become part of that whole universe of rocks and stones and trees. And although that has the echo of his earlier poem, which seems to indicate now that all of England has become beloved to him because it resembles the beloved, nevertheless in this poem, that last line seems almost to trail off, almost as though rocks and stones and trees just keep going around and around and around, trailing off into the distance of his reverie. And in that sense, there's a real melancholy to this poem. He loves this woman, and yet the time period he had with her was like a dream. And now he's shaken out of the dream by her death, and he has an intense emotional experience. One that now he only can reflect back on with sorrow, with longing, with a certain level of ennui, I suppose you could say.